So hey guys, what's up, this is ScherBR and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we'll be discussing the Ultra Deluxe banner Genryu that bring us two Ultra Deluxe exclusives, being Genryu and Madeleine. Madeleine is an Ultra Deluxe exclusive only on global because she was buffed. Genryu was also buffed but slightly. Madeleine is a completely different character, in my opinion. Now we also have Valdor. Valdor is Platinum, he'll stay on Platinum, so he doesn't have such a priority as the other two characters. I need to discuss that, so we will go to now on SaGa website. Now we will start with Valdor. Valdor has three different SS styles in Japan, and the first one we already got. This one was farmable. This is the second one that we can summon right now, and there is a future one that's more even about damage. All of the versions of Valdor are based on STR, Agility, and Endurance, and also some Will, depending on the version. This one here has more STR than Agility. Well, all of his versions doesn't have insane Agility, but the Endurance is pretty good, so he can be used in the front line without receiving too much damage like some other martial artists. And I should also say that this one has bonuses for Endurance even. It's not even for Agility. That's an interesting thing. Also, this is the only style that gets 2 arrows for STR, so it's good to have this one, but because it's Platinum, you can wait for it. Also, the future version of him, it's a multi-hit attacker, has 2 arrows for Agility, and you kinda only need this last 2. The first one was not so good. But now reading about this one here, let's check the skills. The first one is both Blunt and Slash. It's a very higher combination. You have Speed Power 18 modifier, it's strong because of the coast, only 4 BP. Then the second one is called Spiral Flow, and this attack is also Blunt and Slash. It attacks the whole enemies. And well, if you compare this guy to Red was released recently, and Red uses only 6 BP when you awaken. And he also has Power Charge, so he can use that 3 times in a row. This guy here has some limitations, he can only use this twice, so if you don't have any other character to clear a wave by itself, you will not have full AoE with him, only 2 times, and you can only use this on turn 1 or turn 3, or turn 2 and 3. You have to skip around. And the last attack is Niagara Buster. This is the same attack we saw with Leonid recently from Ferdinand's banner. This is a medium chance to stun, double S power 54, it's very close to triple S already, that's good enough, and well, gives increased damage against aquatic and fish. Well, he will not be stunning with this attack because it only has 32% intelligence, so you should just consider the damage. Also, stun with attacks that has so much coast, it's not even reliable. Now, for passives, he kind of goes for the right decision. The first one, it gives him a chance to buff his own STR and Agility on the beginning of a turn, so every new turn he has a new chance. So this can be used on boss fights. You get 25% chances of getting STR and Agility. The good thing is that martial artists need both status to become stronger. He doesn't have the highest Agility for martial artists, but good enough, and because he can self-buff, if you're using it with a strategy that increases Agility, like Matriarch, he gets stronger faster. But the problem is just that it's only 25% chance of triggering. It's a very old design. Some characters will get in the future passives that trigger every turn, like, you know, Mac. Mac gets Dexterity every new turn. Now the second one is Counter-Attack Protection. This one is kinda old as well, because, you know, we got characters like Annie, Cotton that can just negate direct damage and counter-attack with 40% chances. Valdor will only reduce incoming damage by 35%, and also only counter with normal attack. Cotton counters with attack that can heal, and Annie counters with attack that has double elements and better power. So when compared to these characters, well, you have not many reasons to use Valdor. But if you don't, he may work for some defensive buff strategies, because when he counters, he also has a chance to buff himself. Last one is Fired Up 4, so 15% increase in damage at all times. So I don't think Valdor can bring much to the table for global because of so many blunt damage dealers, although he can do Slash as well. The second skill is inferior to Red because Red can use it 3 times in a row, but his version also brings Slash. If you have like Mac that can kill a first wave by itself, you can use this one twice in a row. So you can find some scenarios where you can use this guy, but it's just that he does not give much reason to summon for him. Also, this version of Valdor will give you more ground haste for STR, so when his future version that's stronger gets released, you kinda have faster ground hits for STR, and this other one has for agility. This one is pretty strong because it has one of the best double S attacks in the game for AoE. You can see 48 modifier, hits for whole enemy, and it can be used on turn 3 only. Yeah, this guy is insane, but that's good because it can be used easily if you have fast attackers. He also is a multi-hit attacker, so, well, we're not discussing this guy right now because I just want to show you that Valdor has a place in the future. Well, and now it's time to talk about Genryu. Genryu has only 2 different styles. This one is the Ultra Deluxe Genryu, and this one is the one that you get from story. In Japan there is another Genryu, but it should be considered a different character because it has a different color and you cannot inherit from this one. So, this Genryu here is a pet of Joe, and if you have Joe you may consider summoning for Genryu because they work well together. This one has 1 arrow for endurance, 2 for agility. You need to train the A style sometimes because of the increased SDR. Well, it's a bummer. I understand. So, for status, he is based on STR and agility. If you don't know, martial artists are based on agility and STR for damage. Agility affects their accuracy and also evasion rates. They don't need dexterity. That's important because you can see that his dexterity is very low. 32% only, but you really don't need it. It's a useless status for martial artists. He doesn't have high status for both endurance and will or love or charm or even intelligence, but very good values for agility on 97% and 90 for STR. Even bonus status for them. So, let's check the attacks. Genryu is a dragon, and dragons brings double elements. Especially him, he's just like Joe, cold and heat. So first skills we have the first one being blunt and cold. C power 17 modifier, no high, nothing special, but it's cheap. The second one, Metal Breath, it's very similar to the same skill that we have with Joe. The second skill of Joe is both heat and cold, and they work super well together, because if you have a stage with only 1 or 2 enemies, you can just use them together for the same damage potential. And you do more damage because of the passes, but we'll more into that later. But it's good because cold and heat are not easy to find together. Well, Joe and not many other characters will be able to do something like this. But Genryu is not about single target. The third skill is a full AoE attack with both heat and cold damage again, and very high damage output, but with a very high cost as well. The cost is 15 BP, you can reduce this to 12, but he does not have power charge, so that means that you can only use this on turn 2, and this attack is not fast, so you have to consider turn order. But the most important thing, Genryu was buffed in global. In Japan it was A power 30 modifier, but in global it's now S power, so it can be anything from 36 to 44 modifier. Imagine 44 modifier is way higher than 30, if that's the value that they choose. We don't know because we cannot check for the game files. But this means a lot because of the passive. We need to discuss the passive, then I'll go back to explain how strong this can be. So the first one gives him 30% increase in damage, but only for 1 turn on the start of a turn. This is the same thing as Barthélemy. And Barthélemy is very strong because of the passives and not just because of the modifiers, and not even about the status. So this allows him to give more damage. Yeah, his status are pretty high, remember? And the second one is the same passive as Joe. 5% increase in damage to heat, 5% increase damage to cold. So for skills that have the 2 properties, you get around 10% increase in damage. For skill number 2 and skill number 3. For the first skill, it's only 5% increase in damage. So here we have around 40% increase already. Then we have fired up 5 with 20% more damage at all times this time as well. So what we get here is 60% increase in damage on turn 1 and then 30% increase in damage on wards. This value is still pretty high. I think that you can even use him sometimes in boss fights, although I don't think he's a boss specialist. The problem with this skill we need to discuss now. It's powerful, yes, very strong. It has a cost, kinda high, 12 BP, means that he cannot use this on turn 1. And it comes with a price. He has insanely high agility. If you are using a normal squad without fast attackers, it may be possible that Genryu will attack with the second skill on turn 1, changing the attack order, and you don't want that. So how do you fix this? You need to bring someone to kill the first wave with fast attacks. Those can be Barthélemy, Joe, or Mac. Especially Mac, especially Joe. Barthélemy is getting a little old. Well, he can still clear some waves, but not all of them. Especially even Joe, because Joe stacks with the second passives. Joe makes Genryu stronger, Genryu makes Joe stronger. So if you have Joe, you can consider summoning for Genryu because of such a high damage potential. He will be one of the kings of Final Island. He will be one of the kings for farming if you have multiple attackers to finish waves fast. But the problem is that he becomes too reliant on having someone that can finish first wave and attack before him. This can be a problem, this restricts his usage, in my opinion. Mac is also pretty nice to use with him. Let's try to make some comparisons. If you want to attack an enemy that's weak to heat, if it's an undead, it's also weak to pierce, so Mac can finish the first wave. If you want to attack some aquatic enemies, some of them are also weak to pierce. Mac also brings pierce with his fast attack. Joe brings the same element, so she always combos with him for stages that the enemies are weak. Barthélemy goes for the heat part, so if the enemy is weak to heat, Barthélemy can also join. There are some other cards that can also work here. If the first enemy is only a single target, you can place your Genryu on the STR position instead of the agility position, and then you can bring another martial artist. Well, the best companion is probably Red. You can get Red in the agility plus position of Rainbow Rangers, allowing Red to finish the first wave by himself with his extremely powerful first punishing combo attack, and then on the next wave you can allow Red to just use a normal attack, and Genryu will use his strong AoE attack. Yeah, allowing us to take advantage of such a powerful attack that will clear most waves in the games just fine. Even if you consider neutral damage, the damage is so high that I think that he becomes the strongest AoE attacker in the game. The second best one is probably Fuse, and Fuse can be used as well in some setups depending on the content. Some undeads are also weak to Blunt. So Heat, Blunt, and Sun. Yeah, if you have the newest version of Fuse, you can use him for turn 3, or some other characters like even Xenon. Xenon also brings sun damage, but undeads are both weak to sun and heat. So you can see the many possibilities of using Genryu, but I must say that he is still a little limited for turn order. If you don't have these characters that I'm mentioning, he becomes a little more restricted, and that decreases his value. And I must say that if you don't have all these characters, you can skip him easily. It's not easy to use him, and he may come in the future and become more widely available. So Genryu is super strong, but also not easy to use. You need to have good squad composition to take advantage of him. Can even be used in some boss situations where you don't have a nuke for either heat or cold, but he was made for farming. Farming is still the most time you spend in this game, so I don't see a problem with this. Madeleine was changed for global, like I said, and we need to discuss a lot of things about this character because this new style is amazing. As you can see, the first and second styles of her are from story. This one was the first one limited that came with Billionaire's banner, and she was so good, and I still use her today. I think she's one of the best characters even now. This style here, without talking about this Ultra Deluxe version. And the reason for you to summon for this version doesn't have any meaning if you have or not this one. Having this one increases the value of this, but she can live by herself, because she was not built for farming. She is totally different build for boss fights. Yeah, this one is for boss fights. But this version of Madeleine is just so widely useful. She can be used in all content in the game. And I mean, all content. Save for boss, because she was not made for boss. And then she fixes this, the Ultra Deluxe version, by being strong in boss fights with a different design and a very interesting design, to be honest. So she has two other styles in the future, and they are both reliant on RNG mechanics. I don't know why, but not many people like these two different mechanics. So they buffed this one to have higher passives, higher status, and maybe become something that they couldn't make the Madeleine in Japan. Well, let's discuss this, but I don't think we can talk about here because everything about her is different. The only thing we need to check is that this version here has penalty on STR. I don't know why. Maybe they will change this for global, and it at least has very high agility and 2 arrows for agility and also 1 for intelligence. She needs intelligence, we will discuss that. But we cannot talk about her here, we need to go to Reddit where we have information about her release. So, Madeleine is a total different beast. Like I was saying, she got some difference here. She lost some intelligence, not much. She lost some agility because of the standard bonus, but got a better bonus for STR, and now she has higher multipliers for both STR, endurance, and love. So thanks Forgotten Chaos for posting this on Reddit. It's good for us to make this comparison. Let's start with the first skill. The first skill is a roll attack called Thunder Run. This one here has the power 11 modifier. Not so good, not so bad. Roll attacks are hardly useful. Well, especially with a character that should be using this attack on boss. But then in Japan, she had a small chance to stun. Well, she has a very high intelligence, remember, 71. So she was stunning some targets. But then, in global, they changed it. They don't want her to stun, they want her to debuff dexterity. Dexterity debuffs are very rare in this game. We just got Vassalt from the current banner for Matriarch. He debuffs with 4 BP, the same thing as her. But how good is a dex debuff? Well, we have to understand something. How accuracy works for physical attackers. Physical attacks almost always relies on dexterity to land. The different cases are spells. They are based on intelligence and agility. And also martial arts. Martial arts are only based on agility for accuracy. There are also some special martial arts that depends on both intelligence and agility as well. But all the other types, we rely on dexterity to hit. So if your boss has any of the different icons of the weapons that I just said, save for staffs, save for martial arts, they will start to miss if you debuff their dexterity. That is one of the best strategies for the future game. Matriarch allows you to increase your agility to very high levels to increase your evasion even further. So if you have a dexterity debuffer to debuff bosses that uses physical attacks, you will not be hit. But yeah, it's a valuable strategy that will be useful for a lot of time, until the bosses start cleansing your buffs or cleansing their debuffs. So, other characters that can do this. Vassalt for single target. Darke for single target as well. Darke uses only 2 BP. You can use this from inheritance of a NES version of Darke that comes from a free tower. Then we have also another character that is Bune. Bune has a AoE version of a Dex debuff with her future style. That is probably the definitive version of a Dex debuff. And that is pretty awesome because Bune can also debuff agility. So she can use it in both physical or magical bosses. Very good for a companion to Matriarch in my opinion. So this increases her value because Dex debuff is way better than just stun. Yes. So the second skill is now totally different as well. Use it to be a roll attack, now it's a counter evasion stance. She deals D power with the first attack and then she enters an evasion counter stance that counters with B damage for slash and lightning. Yes, the counter damage being B is not that good because we just received Rutina with way more damage. And well, Alice is both slash and lightning, but she wants to counter for other reasons that I'll be discussing later because of her passives. It's useful here and there, but remember, it only counters direct attacks and they are always physical and hardly ever AoE attacks, only single target attacks. So this is for when you want to use her with Tiger Shark formation because she does not draw aggro to herself. Tiger Shark works because she goes for the first slot and that slot has a very high chance of being attacked. And then we have the third skill, and this one we can go back to Roma SaGa because this attack here is double S power 46 modifier. 46 not so high, but being SS it's already okay. 8 BP means that you can use this twice in a 3-turn rotation. And in global it's Slash and Lightning. It was only Slash in Japan. We don't have many sources of light in the game yet, so this increases her value for some farming scenarios. Although I must say that I don't see it being so useful for farming scenarios because she will not kill most waves. But remember, this has a fast property. So she will always go first unless you have other fast attacker. Her agility is also pretty high, so there's a high chance of she going first. So this skill is only useful for those stages where you try to kill the first enemy, or maybe you just need an extra help. There's one strong enemy and some small enemies and you need her alongside another attacker to finish. But it's not as easy as you think to work. She also brings a large chance to stun. Most bosses are immune to stun, but if it works, it works. But it's good to have fast options. If you don't like this, you can use another skill. You can even inherit something from her other style. But I do believe that you are better inheriting something to override the first skill. In farming scenarios, sometimes you may need a single target attack for first turn and then 2 AoEs. She can do that. She can open with 8 BP with her double S attack and then just use 2 AoEs if you inherit it from her past limited style. That is also something that may work. But remember, 46 is not that high. We already have things like Flash Triple Thrust that has, I think, 53 modifier. We already have characters that can do triple S damage on turn 1. At least she can attack twice in a 3-turn cycle. So returning here, the good thing is that it added lightning damage. Being fast, I don't think it's so important in her case, but we barely have turn 1 fast attackers, the more the better. Now for passives, let's discuss her passives. The first one is copied from Doll. Remember Doll from Cotton's banner? I really like Doll. For many reasons, not just because of the passive. She has a 50% chance to evade all attacks when all allies are alive. That is amazing. I really like this with Doll. It has a high cost but also a high risk for a high payoff. If someone dies, you lose this passive, it stops triggering. But if you revive someone before your enemy attacks, it starts acting again. And some bosses will start with their strongest attacks on turn 1. So when I use Doll, sometimes I even retreat till I get the perfect conditions. Not that I like this, but this is how she was designed. And sometimes, yeah, the boss will attack you 3 times and you will hit for the 3 digits instead of she evading. But for long fights, if they release more characters with passives like this one, you have very good chances of surviving. She also works pretty fine with Jorg, because if she takes the damage, let's say that Jorg is added to your squad, Jorg decreases damage by 20%. If she receives the damage on the first turns, it will not be a very high damage. And because she can self-heal, she can return to full HP and take a huge hit again. Yeah, let's talk about the second passive. The second one means that when she attacks, she now has a large chance to heal. Large is 40% chance to heal. And buff herself for STR and agility on the same time. This is many passives together on the same slot. It has insane value. Totally has. Let's see, the healing is not so high, but it should be around 300 or something for her, or even a little more. She got a little more love, so the healing will be a little better. And STR, so she gets more damage with her skill number 3. And more agility, she can start evading, so she does not rely only on the first passive to survive. The more she attacks, the more buffs she can get to herself. And if she counters, she can trigger this as well. She can self-heal on a counter, she can self-buff on a counter as well. That's just the same thing that happens with Mirza. And I think you can take a lot of value out of this. For boss fights, if she's using on the Tiger Shark formation, you can even bring Doll together and place her for a debuff position. So they debuff the boss, she debuffs dexterity, Doll debuff STR, and you have either Nawal's daughter or Matriarch to buff yourself. That seems very interesting in my opinion, and brings more value to a character that was mostly just for farming scenarios. And for the last passive, she has increased damage. Well, 15% increase in all times and plus 10 when she's on full HP. She will be on full HP most of the time if you are healing back and if you are evading attacks. Sometimes she will not, but it's only 10%. The skill is not just about being on full HP. This skill is super recent on Japan, and it's just the combination of Fire up 4 with Hard Wallop. Combination of two passives again. So they stacked a lot of things into this character to make it seem like it's worked. It's worked, yes, I do believe that Madeleine is worked. She can be used now in boss fights in many different scenarios. You are stacking a character that can be a debuffer on a tank slot. If you are using her on Tiger Shark formation, she can survive by RNG, of course. She doesn't have such a high endurance. Let's just remind us that she is not exactly good in endurance, 41%. But like I said, if you're using Jorg, she would have a higher chance of surviving. But then, if she gets hit, the damage will be high. That's the same case with Doll. But when she doesn't, she just stacks up, gets more STR, gets more chance to evade because of such a high agility, and counters. Self-heal. Very nice thing. I do believe that she's one of the best characters for boss fights now. I really like it, Doll, when she was released because she kinda proposed two different things on the same time. That's the same thing with Ren as well. Ren is a tank, a cover tank, maybe not the best cover tank, but he could also debuff. And when you have a character that can perform two roles instead of just one, you get more value, you can increase your squad compositions. So now that we are back on the banner image, this is banners worth summoning for. Just a small recap. Valdor is not exactly bad, just faces many competition with blunt damage dealers. If you summon it on the recent banners for Gradius or even Fuse banner, you don't have many reasons to go for Valdor. He's Platinum, you can skip and wait if you want. If you're a fan of the character, no problem summoning for him. Genryu is limited. It's extremely powerful but limited. That's the same thing we had with Coppelia. Fuse, it's also kind of similar to him. Has some problems with squad building, but if you have the correct characters, they will just offer way more damage. He probably does more damage than Fuse. Fuse brings buff, but yeah, you don't need buffs if you are killing the enemies. And Madeleine brings so much value in boss fights that you can kind of build different squads now. She can be a tank, a debuffer, all on the same time, and with better chances of surviving. If you have Jorg, she becomes even more interesting alongside Matriarch, because they can stack agility together and survive a lot of attacks. If you have Doll as well, well, you have many different setups that you can use now. But is Madeleine better than the past one? I don't think so. They are totally different. You cannot even compare both. You may still be using the past premium style of her all the time. I still believe that that one may even have a little more value because most of the time you are just farming on this game. Boss fights, you always have more than one strategy. And if you already have Matriarch, you have some other characters that can cover for either the tankness or for the dex debuff. The value is here, the value is high, but is it absolute? It's not. It's just a good banner. I must say that it's a good banner now if you have the characters that I mentioned. But if you don't, you can skip or just wait and see what you have in the future. I do suspect they may release some of the protagonists' banners in the next week, so this banner may stay for a while. If you want these characters, it's okay to go for. Remember, that's only 2 characters, and you may spend 45,000 gems. Do you have them? If you have. If you don't, maybe just wait a little more. That doesn't mean that this banner is bad. Okay? Thanks so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, you have the links here in the description of the video. We see each other on the next one. Bye.